Here we have another video from Meanin Transmission. Two locations, one in Willow Grove, one in Lansdale. We reach at meanintransmissions.com. Transmission we're talking about today is a 42 RLE. 42 RLE is a transmission. It's used in a variety of Chrysler applications. And this one, this is actually a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 2008. And got the transmission apart, and a couple things we see. You can see the clutches themselves are smoked. Transmission was obviously slipping. A couple things that we saw here with it. This is the rear planet set. One of the things that we want to look at and scrutinize with the planet set is to make sure that the planets do not rock. If the planets rock, you can wind up with a situation where they're not being loaded correctly 100% across the width of the teeth, and then you have a gear train failure. So this planet pinion here has a bit of axial rock to it. So as soon as we see that, it's an indication that the pinion, the bearings that are little needle bearings inside the pinions are bad. And it's one thing if there's movement, thrust movement this way, but when you have this rocking that takes place, it's an indication that there's wear on those bearings, and that gets replaced. Another thing we have, this is the input clutch retainer here. I'll show you on the, okay, so there's the input clutch retainer, okay? So that input clutch retainer has a sealing surface right here, okay? And that sealing surface is actually sealing on that O-ring there. So when the sealing surface is damaged like it is, that can create a hydraulic leak and could have potentially been a contributing factor to the failure and the wear that took place on these clutch components. In addition, the vehicle, we did have a bit of material contamination there. So this is a VLP style transmission. The VLP indication is a variable line pressure. So we have a feedback system. This is a transducer. This is a pressure sensor that essentially feeds to the computer. The computer can assess, what the duty cycle percentage is on this pulse width modulated pressure control solenoid, and the objective here is to reduce the overall operating pressure of the transmission. The 42 RLE initially did not have that VLP system, but the VLP system is essentially to minimize line pressure so that the clutches are holding, but you're not creating a situation where there's a unrequired load on the pump that can obviously have an adverse effect on fuel mileage just because it's an additional parasitic loss. So they incorporated the VLP solenoids and the transducer. Those are going to get replaced. We also have a solenoid body here that this unit is going to get replaced as well. The other style transmissions have individual solenoids. This actually has a solenoid pack. This transmission is very similar to the transmission that's actually in the Chrysler minivan. So here's a 42 RLE. Okay, so if we go back to the 604 or 41 TE, we can look and see the pump. Here's the same input clutch retainer, same architecture. The difference is this transmission is a front-wheel drive application, whereas a 42 RLE was designed for rear-wheel drive. Transmission has a limited capacity, not a real big gear train. Clutch components, as you can see, are not that big. But they've done a lot with with adaptive shift controls. It's one of the early vehicles to actually incorporate clutch capacities and clutch indexing, clutch volume indexing, in order to make the shifts take place in a time frame that's programmed into the computer and manipulate solenoid strategy to do so. In addition, this vehicle needs a flex plate. Hold on, Randy. This vehicle needs a flex plate. Here's the flex plate that we pulled out. We can see that around the bolt circles here, the bolts that go into the torque converter. This flex plate is damaged. So on top of the traditional rebuilding items, we also have some additional hard parts, and we have some this flex plate should also be replaced while we're there.